children barking in the background. Okay.
Why didn't we include this? Can we include it? Who can do the best bark? 3, 2, 1.
You go first. Like best bark. Like, what are the qualifiers? Like,
Does it sound like a
does
dog?
it sound like a dog? Okay.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
My coworker could do it so well, it's unnerving.
No.
I can only do ankle biter.
How you?
Oh my god,
That third one was good.
That was good.
We love shaking them out. Shaking
Oh
them
my
out.
god. Oh, sorry guys. Hello and welcome back to the Point and Laugh podcast with your hosts
Skyler.
and Kaylynne.
Hat rings are to stay. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, that at least you switched. I think you switched hands, so your bulky ones aren't on that one. So
I know what to do next week.
it's fine. We.
Side eye.
I said, excuse me. I hope you all enjoyed our barking competition.
We're never beating the furry allegations.
Last night we went and saw Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots.
Puss in Boots. It was wonderful. It was magical. A wonderful experience.
Everyone go see it. Literally, we sat there with Taylor, and Taylor was sitting next to me. And the second that, like, it started with Antonio Banderas, right?
Yeah.
That's his name? Doing, like, opening line narration. And she out loud goes, "Oh no, why is he sexy?"
Yeah.
And she said it
Literally what we
fairly
talked
loudly.
about in the last episode.
Why get sexy voice actors to
No.
voice animals? What am I
Also-
supposed to do with that?
Those cats were so horny. Like, they did not need to be.
Oh my god.
The sexual tension was a lot.
When was
It
the last
a
time
lot.
that you've seen Barbie, Princess and the Pauper?
Never.
I'm sorry.
No, I've never seen it.
Oh, okay, well, turn the podcast off now. So we're watching that immediately. But you know how, like, every Barbie movie, they have, like, the animal sidekick, you know? And
Yeah.
so...
What, wait, where's it's not Bubbles. It's in Fairytopia. Did you ever watch? Or no, I watched
Bibble!
And then when he eats, here's the thing. I did watch. I had Barbie. It was Mermaidia or Fairytopia. I don't remember which one. It was one
You
of the two.
give off Mermaidia, Fairytopia vibes.
That was the one. Well, that was the one that we had on DVD. So that was the one that I watched all the time, and that was the one with Bibble. And when they're underwater, he like eats this like special berry, and it gives him like a very deep voice. And he's like, "Hello, ladies," and I'm like, Bibble.
So the reason Bibble keep going. The reason I bring it up is because, like, so both Barbie and her twin the lore is not, it's kind of way beside, but they both have talking cats. Well, the cats don't talk to Barbie, but they both talk
To each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they make these cats so unnecessarily horny, it's absurd. Like Barbie walks away and then it's just the two cats and they're like, "Well, hello there." And you're like, "What the huh? No, please." And then they end the movie by saying like, "And Wolfie and Serafina had many kittens." And you see like 50 kittens at this wedding and you're like, "Oh, cool." So Barbie was like, "And Barbie and her husband and Erica and her husband lived happily ever after, and those two cats fuck." The end.
Yeah, those are that's a lot. That's a lot for a kids movie. It is fun like being an adult and watching kids movies and seeing like, I don't know, all the little like adult jokes that they like slip in there so that it's like enjoyable for the parents too.
See, that's the normal way to put it. Instead of like being so chronically online that they're like, "See, these have all been subliminal messages to Disney's been trying to make our kids horny from the beginning." It's like, no, those were for you.
Yeah.
If you didn't have worms for brains, maybe you would have a better time than being like, "Is that a sex joke in my children's entertainment?" And it's like, yeah.
It's like, yeah, it'll go over their fucking heads.
If they do get it, that's unnerving.
Yeah.
It
depends on the age.
I was 8 years old watching Grease because my mom was like, "Disney Channel? Not for kids." You know what is for kids? Grease. And I was 8 years old and being like, "Pussy wagon." That's one of the lyrics in Grease Lightning.
Is that what is that? Oh, is referring to your car?
Yeah, well, they were gonna like make this car, and they were gonna hype it up and be like, "This car is gonna be a sex machine. We're gonna get like mad puss in this wagon. We're gonna have sex in the back seat," and then they do. And then the condom breaks.
Yeah.
And again, did I say that I was 8 years old? Because I was.
Remember Back to the Future where he almost has sex with his mom?
Yeah. And then like the mom almost gets raped.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's
8
a
years old, I
lot.
said. And my mom was like, Hannah Montana? This is the house of God.
How dare you? How dare you even think?
Dude, how are we gonna bring this back?
I was gonna say, I'm like, there's not gonna be a segue for this one. I think we just have to get into it. Today's episode is kind of like a part 2 to our wellness episode.
Yeah.
But just more a deep dive on like the fitness element. Mm-hmm. Where I feel like the wellness episode was more focused. Oh, excuse me, cat. Was
It's
much
just
more
our world.
focused.
We're just living in it.
Exactly. Wish it could be me.
We're never beating the furry allegations.
The wellness episode was much more focused on, I think like supplements and stuff. But anyway, so we are kind of doing a deeper investigation into, like wellness fitness culture and specifically like boutique fitness classes, and kind of like the classism that goes along with it and like the superiority complex, and things such as that. So let's just get into it. I feel like I should preface before we start this. I have been to these classes. Literally this morning, I like went to a cycling class.
God.
And like, I don't know, I feel like we are going to be critiquing these more. It's more just like the culture that these brands cultivate, and not like the actual like exercise itself. Because the thing with a lot of these brands, such as like SoulCycle or Barry's Boot Camp or even like Orange Theory, and things like that are very like class and instructor based workout classes. It is all about the experience, right? It's about like the luxury element of it. Like you're not just selling the service, you are selling the experience. You know, like you can go to a Planet Fitness for $10 a month and like ride on the cycle
With the rest of the poors.
Yeah, the like stationary cycle there, but you're not getting the experience of like the keels in the bathroom or the like hot fitness instructor
Who knows you by name.
Exactly. Oh my God. Okay, so I'm just gonna speak on my personal experiences a little bit. So I've been to like yoga classes, and very, very recently I've started going to cycling classes. I went to one SoulCycle class, and then there's this other place I started going to. I have a ClassPass membership, so I'm not spending like $34 on each class, which is what it would probably cost without a membership like that. I think my membership, it's like $50 a month, and I can take like, it's like 4 or 5 classes depending on how many credits they are. So it's like 1 class a week. Anyway, but so I started going to this other place, Evolve Cycle or something like that. It's in Studio City. But my experience there compared to SoulCycle was like exponentially better. But all of that to say, like, no hate to these, if you enjoy these things, like, if you enjoy going to these classes, I personally enjoy them, but I think it's just interesting to look at, like, the culture surrounding it, because there's definitely been, like, a few moments, like, literally this morning, you're like, riding to the beat of the music or whatever, and the instructor puts on the cinematic remix of I'm a Survivor from, like, the Tomb Raider movie trailer. And I was literally like, Jake Gyllenhaal is in this room, like,
run
in his head, like, cycling to this fucking I'm a Survivor, like, that's literally what it's like. And I'm like, and he is going to murder someone.
It's gonna be Taylor Swift.
Yeah, those were like the
and
vibes.
I will ride for Taylor Swift at dawn. So I'm not a part of this world at all. I wish I was, mostly just because I wish I was like way healthier. But so I'm definitely going to be coming at this as like a full-on stranger's perspective. But I'm not coming at it as like I think I'm better than any of these people. Far from it. They have their lives way more in order than I do. That this is the problems that they are having. Is that they might be getting too attached to their instructors, and that they might be getting a little too competitive with their fellow cyclers. That's just I just find it interesting. I don't think I'm better than these people. And when you're coming at it from like you don't think that you're better.
No, I fucking do it. Like
same with like earlier, like in episode 1, like I do the all natural like stuff, and I have crystals, and sometimes I put crystals in my bra, like. And I feel like in general, like unless we're talking about like kidfluencers, because I do think I'm better than them. Like in general with these topics, like we're just kind of meant to poke fun. I don't ever think
interesting.
That I'm,
It's interesting because with all of these things, I don't know, it's like people say like everything in moderation, and with literally anything, like you can get too far in and you can get too oh my god, sorry, I keep hitting the fucking microphone.
You want to hold something like my hand maybe?
It's almost Valentine's Day.
That was so smooth. I don't know where that came from. The power of the lesbian commanded me.
Just with literally anything, like you can get too sucked in, and I think it's just interesting to analyze the like classism of these things and like the broader social impact that something that like is seemingly kind of frivolous as like a boutique fitness class can have on our like American society.
Disclaimer over with. Let's get back into it.
Let's get back into it.
Jeebus Christmas Christ.
So I came across this Harvard article.
Harvard.
Oh, Harvard Business Review. That's what it is.
Still.
And this is from like 1998, the Harvard Business Review magazine. And it's basically just talking about like the idea of the experience economy. And if you're not super familiar with what that is, it's basically exactly what it sounds like. It's where like you are paying a premium for an experience. You're not necessarily paying for like the service, but rather the experience of it all.
That's everything in LA.
Literally.
Like going back home, my parents are always like, "You're telling me that you paid like twice as much to do like a champagne where you dissolve cotton candy into it? You could get that for $250." I'm like, "Yeah, but
the vibes.
The experience, you can't buy the vibes."
The vibes. And frankly, they be getting me on the vibes sometimes.
Life is short. Okay.
But there's basically a quote from that explaining, while prior economic offerings, commodities, goods, and services are external to the buyer, experiences are inherently personal, existing only in the mind of an individual who has been engaged on an emotional, physical, intellectual, or even spiritual level. So in those cases, like the experience of the service becomes more valuable than the service itself. So for example, like the Planet Fitness example that I was talking about earlier, like there are certain elements of the experience that like, yes, you're saving money because it's only $10 a month. But if you were to go to SoulCycle, like you would have a instructor guiding and motivating you through the exercise. You have like a community of peers right around you. And like, even like this morning, like people were like hoop and holler, like during the class, or like after you get done with like a set or something, they'll be like, woo, you know, just like stuff like that. Like you can really feel like the presence of like the community around you. And then obviously they offer these like luxury products in the locker rooms as well. So like Equinox has Kiehl's, SoulCycle has R&Co, Bears Bootcamp has Oribe, and just all of these like luxury brands that would be like $50 for a bottle of shampoo, and like you can just go to Equinox and like wash your hair there with these luxury products. And then also with these things comes like exclusivity and status that comes with being like a SoulCycle rider. Like it's very much the brand, right? And even during my class this morning, it was very interesting how the instructor was like calling out people by names, and that's very much part of the experience as well. And I think that's what all of these brands are kind of trying to sell is the instructor is a part of it too. And people will go back to like the same instructor that they really enjoy. You know, someone who like they want to be friends with, someone who they think is funny. There's this one guy on Peloton. I don't remember his name, but I know everyone was like obsessed with him, probably still is obsessed with him. But it's like things like that where like the instructors become part of the experience as well, and you keep returning for that same person. I didn't know this, but I found out that SoulCycle is majority owned by Equinox, which totally makes sense because their marketing is like exactly the same, and like trying to sell this luxury lifestyle. Also, apparently, this is a side tangent, but I was just like amazed by this. Equinox has a hotel.
What?
In New York. In New York, they have the Equinox Hotel. The room that I looked at was like $700 a night. And yeah, it's very, I don't know, I just thought that was very
I want to go to there.
It was, I mean, it was very beautiful. It was like the Equinox, like modern, sleek, like, you know, like that type of aesthetic, but that they're just really like clinging on to that like luxury identity and branching off to different like business practices, which I think is like, I don't know, just very interesting. And then also with like all these boutique fitness studios, like they're very obviously targeting and marketing towards a specific group of people, aka like wealthy corporate America, like millennials, like that type of group. Because all of these fitness studios are in wealthier areas. Like I looked at in the SoulCycle locations, and the SoulCycle locations are in Brentwood, Manhattan Beach, Pasadena, Santa Monica, and West Hollywood. Those are only 5 locations in all of LA. And they are in like the wealthiest of areas because they know that is their clientele.
Yeah, you ever like walk past like a building that has been freshly bought and you can tell that it's about to get gentrified because suddenly it's exposed brick, it's the same like 3 green plants, and they have like a hot pink neon sign that's like, you can do it, bitch. Believe in yourself, whore.
Stop.
And then like they have like crystals for like $300, but they're like the size of like a pebble up there on the front, and then you just pass by and you're like, oh god, there goes the neighbor. They have like outside their building, they have like the chalkboard stand where it's like, come on in, bitches, with like 3 things, 3 exclamation points, and like a drawing of, I don't know, Ryan God, I don't care, but it's that type of aesthetic is kind of what I picture.
Yeah, it's very, well, I mean, like Brentwood has, you know, obviously like notoriously been the like most expensive area in LA. It's like right outside of Beverly Hills. It's where a lot of celebrities live. And
Celebrities don't live in Beverly Hills anymore?
No, not really. Most of them in the Hollywood Hills. I feel like Beverly Hills is more for like
old school,
old money. Yeah, exactly.
That shows how much I know about where I live, which is not.
But I mean, there's still celebrities in Beverly Hills, but like they're going off to other places as well. But like with these classes, part of the experience as well is like the exclusivity of it, right? And the internal hierarchy that occurs within these classes. I'm going to keep referencing SoulCycle just because there were so many articles on SoulCycle in particular because they've gotten in like some hot water. Yep. So there were lots of articles on SoulCycle. So that's going to be like probably the main example, but I feel like a lot of this can transition to or can reflect on like boutique yoga studios, Pilates studios, and then these like hit workout studios like Barry's Bootcamp or
CrossFit,
Orange
right?
Theory. Is that CrossFit? I think CrossFit might be something different.
I actually don't know what CrossFit is.
I just know it's
like
I've seen certain CrossFit moves. It's like where you have the bar and then you have to use your body weight to like bring you up to the next rung.
Okay, like I'm just gonna really quick. Spin class, Pilates, what goes on in these exercise classes probably aren't kept secret. Like, I bet I could go on Google right now and be like, what the hell goes on in a spin, whatever. But, like, people like me who, like, unless you walk past it, I don't know what goes on in there. And, like, you talk to people because it's all experience-based that are just like, hey, what goes on? What can you expect in a Pilates class? They're just like, I don't know, try it and find out. And you're like, no!
Well,
Tell me.
There are certain, this is something that I notice is that, like, there's specific verbiage that is used that, like, unless you are, like, in the know, you have no idea what the fuck it means. Like, for example, in these cycling classes, like, they use things like tap backs, roosters, doubles, or like your tribe. Yeah, and it's like, literally, what does that mean? And even just, like, clipping into the bike, like, if you don't know what you're doing, you look like a fucking idiot.
Oh, God.
And even though it would literally only take a couple minutes if at the beginning of each class the instructors just like quickly went through and was like, hey, when I say we're doing doubles, like, this is what it means, tap backs, this is what it means, or even just quickly, like, for anyone who doesn't know, this is how you clip into your bike. It would literally only take like 2 minutes to explain all of that, but they never do. They never do. And like, obviously they always say, they're like, oh, if you need help clipping into your bike, like if it's your first, your first class or whatever, just like ask the instructor.
Raise your hand in front of everyone and
Literally.
let everyone know that you don't know what you're doing. And then all these hot moms look at you being like, oh, she's new here, huh? And then you go over and it's like, so you think you can just walk over and you think you can just smile, your little smile, and the instructor will walk over to you if you need help. I've been at this class this is my third class today. All right. I see this instructor more than I see my own husband. And you think you can just get up and use their attention like that?
So it's
what, do
like,
you think you're special?
Exactly. So it's like, you either have to just know, ask a neighbor for help and then oust yourself as like a first timer, or ask the instructor for help and
Or just die.
Like, yeah, have the
Sleeve.
entire class know you're a first timer. Actually, fun. It's not really that embarrassing, but it's kind of funny. So this morning, my foot came out of my shoe.
My foot came out.
My
foot popped off.
My foot came out of my shoe, and it was like during while they were doing like sprints, so the bike is fucking going, and the shoes are like clipped into the bike for safety, so that like your feet don't like go all over. And so my foot came out of the shoe, and the shoe is still on the pedal, and it's just fucking spinning.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, do you have no control over how fast your bike is going?
No, you have control.
Okay. All right.
You have complete control. I will say this is something that, again, like, I think SoulCycle has probably gotten better at this throughout the years, but like a difference I noticed between SoulCycle and then the Evolve Cycle place that I went to is that the Evolve Cycle place was much more accepting of like people at different levels. They're like, you can always modify what we're doing. Like if you are tired and you need to, they call it like the saddle, like when you're sitting on the seat, they're like, if you need to sit in the saddle, like that's totally fine. Go your own pace, go your own speed, try to keep up the best you can. But like, if you can't, it's fine.
I don't want
like
you
we're not going to call
out.
you out. Yeah. Like we're not going to call you out. But with SoulCycle, it was a little, I mean, they give like a similar spiel, but it did feel very like it was much more like, I see you sitting down, like get back up. Like you, yeah. Yeah. It was much more like called out.
I cannot imagine the idea of walking into the gym already is nerve-wracking for me because I am so convinced. I think I've mentioned this to you before. I mentioned this to everybody before that like I'm just so convinced that I'm gonna walk into a gym and it's gonna be nothing but like Insta baddies and like Andrew Tate's pre-prison, and they're all just gonna look at me and be like, oh my god, like she doesn't know what she's doing here. Like that's already my irrational probably fear of going to the gym in LA. But the idea of going into a room, a Pilates class, a spin class with nothing but rich hot moms in very close proximity to an unnervingly attractive instructor, and if I slow down, I'm called out in front of everybody. I just put a bullet through my teeth at that. Like that, you could not have described more of a nightmare scenario for me. That's horrific. I hate that.
Yeah. But on like the other side of things, so like if it's your first class and like you don't know all these things, whatever, but then it's like once you do know, the little like rat part of your brain, the little reward center starts firing, and your brain's like, oh, like like we're in the know, we're a part of the group. Like it's
giving high school.
Yes, I was about to say, I'm like, it's very like high school in that way, where like you're either in the know or you're not. And there's very little instruction. And it's like, yeah, you can just like go on and Google and like, it's really not that big of a deal. But I thought it was interesting that like, they don't just take a minute or two at the beginning of each class to just be like, hey, super quick. If you don't know, here are the moves that we do. And it's also interesting because there's like an element of like spirituality to it.
Yeah.
And so there's also especially in these cycling classes, there are added elements of like, Pilates and yoga within them. them, and like it's a lot about like your breathing techniques and like being mindful, and you do like arm movements too that are very like that are like taken straight from Pilates, and it's this element of like spirituality is part of the experience too, right? Because you're not only gaining your, you know, like physical benefits or whatever, like you're gaining spiritual, mental benefits. And going back to like the audience that they're trying to capture, it is so clear that they are marketing towards overworked or workaholic corporate America, millennials, and now like Gen Zs as they are coming up into corporate America. And throughout the class, they say things like, you know, make the most out of your time here. Like this time is for you. This might be the only time out of the day that like you just get to like sit and do something for you. Like you're, you know, showing up for yourself, and like, I'm so proud of you. And like, it's very motivational, like speaker is a part of the instructor's job is to motivate you and like, I don't know, especially it's giving cult.
Yeah, it's like it's babies first critique is looking at anything that people are passionate about and being like, this is like a religion. Like if you just sit and be like, I think that Disney adults are giving religion, you're like, you're so smart. You want a cookie or a star? Like whatever. But I think what doesn't help is, our monkey brains are so predictable that really all you need to do like is to get us emotionally distraught and then like hit us with a community like or a feeling of like an emotional response, and yeah, it's giving cult. It's the same with like of the rock and roll churches or like church camp. Like these kids are like you keep them up for like days and then they're tired and exhausted, and then suddenly you get that like one good like church song and people start like sobbing and crying because they're just so worn out, and then they're like finally they have this community and that like they want the loyalty of that kid for a while. Same with like, I know we were just talking earlier about Marvel, but like yeah, sitting there I get like emotional response from like this packed theater with this movie that's making me cry, and then I have an attachment to whatever, and yeah, it's so I don't want to be like, you know, oh my god, this is like a religion, but like yeah, you're like making these people so like not just meant like literally exhausted because they're like sweating a puddle on the floor. You might as well just piss your pants. No one can tell the difference between how much you're sweating on your bike, and suddenly you have like a hot person being like, you, Melissa, I am so proud of you, when your own mother probably hasn't even said that. What, you're hooked. Like, how are you supposed to leave that?
And that's like exactly what happens. It's literally exactly what happens. And I also think it's really interesting. I was reading this article from The Cut. It's actually an interview with an author. And the book's called Let's Get Physical, by Danielle Friedman. And it's just a book about like kind of health and like fitness trends throughout the decades. And there's a quote that says, in the 1980s, health was something people wanted to project and signal. It showed you had the means, the time, the leisure time, the class status to devote to shaping your body in a certain way. And then it kind of went on to talk about how like now, because there is such a larger like what the fuck is the word I'm looking for? Oh my god. Body diversity. Oh my god, that was a fucking word I was looking for. Jesus.
You forgot the word diversity.
Literally.
In LA, no less.
Stop. But like now that is becoming like, you as a brand are demonized if you say anything that like goes against that, as you should. But I think because of that, a lot of these fitness places are like, oh shit, well now we can't just like body shame people into coming and like thinking that they're fat and they need to like lose weight, because they can't market that way anymore, whereas like a couple decades ago like you totally could. So now, instead of like overtly promoting this like body transformation as the main incentive to go to these classes, they have shifted to like spiritual transformations as the newest and greatest incentive for you to go to these classes. Like, you're made to believe that by going to these classes and by having these experiences, like, you are going to become a better person because of it. You're going to become a more moral person because of it. You are going to become enlightened by going, and it's really like promoting a lifestyle and like a spiritual change in that way.
Yeah. It's weird that, not weird, but it's interesting that you bring that up because like super like hyper health like exercises like this, like you were talking about, they be like super expensive to get into, and then you like fork up the $34 per whatever class it is, and then you hop on in there, and like so like fat phobes and ableists across time always like push for like everyone to exercise. Like everyone comments under Lizzo's being like, excuse me, exercise. She's literally exercising in her TikTok videos, and then someone will be like, you could exercise more. Or like anyone with like a disability, they're like, have you tried considering exercising maybe? And maybe that would make it go away. And then they purposefully make the like cool exercise in town like intimidating and elitist to even get into. It's like, do you want us to exercise or not?
Yes.
Like you'd think if you would want, like, I want everyone to be able to exercise and I want it to be like hyper accessible, but then like that's lame because like if you see someone who's like not the same body type as you or is like doesn't have as much money as you, then like your class isn't like elitist and cool and exclusive enough and you have to go somewhere else, where it's like be consistent. It's like those same people that they see like a mannequin in like the Kohl's or like whatever shopping thing, and they have like their plus size mannequin like wearing sports and leggings, and people like make fun of them. It's like, do you want us to exercise or not, Craig? Like, what do you want? What do you want from us?
Real quick, I'm gonna take a quick right turn just to kind of talk about like the classism of it all.
Then you mean the left turn.
But like obviously, you know, we're talking about these like $34 a class boutique fitness classes where that's obviously a huge barrier to entry, right? Like that's more than people pay on like a monthly gym membership on one fucking class. And you know, most of these people, like you're kind of expected to go at least weekly, if not like multiple times a week. And I was reading an article, I'm pretty sure it was the Vox article on SoulCycling, which I didn't realize SoulCycling was like so huge in like, I think it was like 2017, 2018, probably just because it was out of my wheelhouse. I was in Iowa when during those years.
I was in Kansas.
So obviously there were no SoulCycles in Iowa. But it's a very interesting article. We'll have all these articles that we talk about in the show notes and such. But it talks about stealth wealth. So it says the term stealth wealth popped up to describe how rich people began shying away from consumerism that actively flaunted their income. Cars, clothes, bags, etc. Minimalist labels and less flashy brands thrived. Luxury, health, and wellness benefited from the effect too, seen as ways to spend money and not seem gauche or insensitive. Your fitness regimen of choice says a lot about you, and just like there are smart car types or and Porsche types, there are yoga types and boot camp types. Exercise has become another arena to compare and contrast your personality and lifestyle with others. And I think this is the part that's like the most interesting to me, is that it's like just the idea of like stealth wealth is something that especially in LA is like so apparent.
Yeah. Because
there are all of these brands, right, where like they're not overtly branded. You know, you're not in like a head to toe Gucci like sweatsuit or whatever. And you don't need to be, because if you are in like a plain white t-shirt, whatever, the average person who walks by you is just going to think it's like a plain white t-shirt from Target or whatever. But the right person and the people who you are trying to impress and like display your wealth to are going to be other wealthy people who are going to be in the know, and they are going to know that that white t-shirt is actually like a white t-shirt from YSL.
Yeah.
Or something like that, where it's like, you're doing these things not to overtly like visualize your wealth to the pores, because who cares what they think. You're doing it in a way to impress other wealthy people. And spending money on like luxury and material goods can seem materialistic, and I think especially where like obviously the wealth gap just keeps increasing and increasing, and I think a lot of wealthy people like feel guilty about it. Poor them. And so spending a shit ton of money on like a luxury purse or a luxury car or whatever might seem like there might be more guilt behind that. But if you're spending a ton of money on like luxury groceries or your luxury fitness regimen, you're investing in yourself and you're bettering yourself. And like, what, someone's gonna say that like you're a piece of shit for bettering yourself? Like,
Exactly.
no one can do that. And fitness has slowly become a way to subtly showcase your wealth. I think in a way that can be more challenging to critique. I don't think, obviously it's not like free from criticism.
Right.
But I do think it can be a little more challenging, because it's like, obviously if you see someone with like a $10,000 purse, you're kind of like, okay, that's like incredibly frivolous and like unnecessary, and like, it's real leather and like all of these things. Like there's so many different points that you can argue on. But then like if someone is going, paying hundreds of dollars to go to like Equinox every month or whatever, like there's not as much that you can say on that, because it's because they're bettering themselves, because for like all of these reasons.
Yeah, rich people love minimalism, I think, for the same reason that like like high expensive ass fancy chefs, when they take like if it's high quality ingredients, you don't need to like ruin the flavor by like a million or so and so spices, where it's like they might just be wearing like a white t-shirt and like jeans and like simple shoes, whatever, but you look closely and those jeans are tailored to fit them exactly. And like whatever their shirt is wearing is an incredibly like luxurious looking fresh material. And it's like the more details or the more like accessories you have on, and like the more things you have in your home, that's considered tacky. Because like if you invest more in your workout routine, you can wear like things that like simple things, but they show off the body that you worked very hard, whatever. And like if you have very like skin like minimalism makeup, it can show off that you've been eating the right things, and like you have the right skincare, you've been drinking enough water, like that type of whatever. The more simplistic stuff that you kind of present, the more it kind of shows off that you've been doing the hard, expensive work behind the scenes. And that's honestly like it's a very like subtle flex.
Yes, exactly. I think my final point, and then you can kind of take it away, is just real quickly, because like I said, like I have gone to these types of fitness classes and like I do enjoy them. And I do think there are pros to them, but at the same time you have to consider like that the barrier to entry is very difficult for a lot of people to achieve. But I think these paid fitness classes, like for example, like this morning I did not want to go. I really did not want to go. But the thing about these classes is because there's only so many spots available, if you don't show up, they're like losing money, quote unquote, because you're not getting that experience that might bring you back. So they can't guarantee a return customer out of that. So if you cancel for ClassPass, I don't know what the policies are for like a lot of these other places, but I know for ClassPass or for ClassPass, you have to, if you have to cancel 12 hours ahead of your scheduled class to get like a full refund and to get your credits back. And if you schedule less than 12 hours in advance, then you still get your credits back, but you have to pay a fee. You have to pay a fee. It's like a $12 fee or something. And then, well, actually the fee depends on like what place it would go to. But then if you're just like a no call, no show, like you just don't show up, then it's more than the actual like cost of the class, basically, because that's a seat that like they could have filled with a person.
Yeah.
So in that way, it like kind of financially forces you to like go. Like this morning, I woke up, my alarm went off, and I'm like, no, I want to sleep in. But then I was like, oh shit, I literally can't. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to fucking pay them like $12, and I really don't want to do that. So obviously, like if you're paying for the class and it incentivizes you to go because it's already in your calendar, it's scheduled, it's harder to back out of. And then there's also like the idea of body doubling, and this is something that like personally for me is very helpful. I did it a lot like whenever I was studying in high school or college. Like I always did best at a coffee shop or a library or something where like other people are doing the same task as you, because it kind of like pressures you to complete a task to keep you focused, motivated, and engaged throughout it. And that's kind of similar, I think, in exercise classes, because you have all these other people who are doing the same thing, who are working, hard. It kind of motivates you to be like, oh shit, like I want to keep up. Yeah. Like I can't just like sit down and like chill out like you want to be able to keep up with these people, and it might push you to like, I don't know, do the bike ride longer than you would have had you not taken that class, or you know, whatever. And then even with something like yoga, like I will say I love yoga, and I think yoga, like obviously it has its own issues with just the like gentrification of it, because it's a, you know, like it has so much history behind it. But with yoga, like it's really interesting because when you go to a class, I think you can get pushed to do different poses that like maybe you wouldn't have even known of before, or like maybe you wouldn't have even tried. And then like it feels a little bit safer with like an instructor there to guide you through it and to like tell you like how it's supposed to feel and things like that. And then something that we kind of touched on earlier too, like taking the cult side out of it, it can really create a sense of community.
Like cults aren't a community. Are you trying to doubt the communal nature of the Kool-Aid gang?
Stop.
They were a family, Kaylynne, and they died like one.
No. A sense of healthy community.
Healthy is an interesting word.
Where like many habitual goers, you know, like they befriend classmates or even like the instructors. Like literally today, the class that I went to, the instructor's sister was there. So it was like literally like bringing the family element like into it. So like, yeah, there are like certain benefits to classes like these. I mean, like obviously, but they don't go without these added elements of like classism and moral superiority and things like that.
I'm a negative Nancy. Now it's time for me to shit all over the... No, obviously. No, I'm not going to do that. But I guess I can only really speak from my point of view. And like, yeah, could I view exercise way more like better? Sure. Like I could see the good in exercising with a group of people that where you all keep the same pace. But again, it's like, guys, we're like all connected. Like we're all in this together. Instead, I see like what I would do if I was in that situation is if I'm pedaling, right? And like I'm about to pass the fuck out, but like I can't just stop because then they'll be like, yo, in the back, get your ass up. You're slouching. Then I just keep going and then I just pass out. This, people have heard me say this story before, but I'm going to say it again. I went to like freshman in high school, right? I was like, it's a new start. Like, you know how middle schoolers are always so like weird about starting high school.
Yeah.
First day I had PE and I'm like, I haven't had PE in like years though.
How?
Because we didn't, years was so dramatic. A year.
Oh,
2 semesters. But as a kid, you're like, oh, it's been ages. And so I'm like, no, first day, no, let's not do this. And they gave me my stupid like baggy shorts and a tee, and they're like, run.
Did you have a uniform in
Yeah.
gym? We did not. We could just wear gym clothes. I mean, like you had to have, there was a rule, like you had to have tennis shoes on and you had to be wearing, like you couldn't wear jeans or you would get like your daily points deducted or whatever. But like we didn't have like a uniform.
At least in the first semester, you had to do a uniform. From then on, you could just basically choose what did you wanted to wear. And then, yeah, you had some people be like, fashion show time.
Yeah.
But so I'm looking whatever, and then we start running the mile, and it had been so long since I ran that I started like going in the back, and then they were like, "This is a new year, Skyler Daniels, run now! You are lagging!" And everyone started looking back to see like who's struggling, and it's me. And then I'm embarrassed. I'm like red in the face, so I start puffing, and I make it. I'm the last one in, and then I get to the locker room, and I throw up. In front of everyone, some angel, her name is Sabrina, we don't talk anymore, but she's an angel, she like quickly grabbed a trash can so I could, but I was so exhausted, overworked, and dehydrated and overwhelmed that I like was like foggy, my legs were jelly, and I went to the locker room and I threw up in front of everybody. And so that will stay with me because they're like, oh my god, she threw up, like you know how people whisper, you could hear the whispers across the lockers forever. I go home and I'm like, Dad, I need you to sign me out of PE, and he's just like,
I need to transfer schools.
I need to change my name, start a new boating school, and I'm just like, Dad, I can't do this anymore. Like this is what happened at school today, and he's like, and that wouldn't have happened if you were in shape.
As if it's your fucking fault. Okay, it's situations like that where it's like, that's a shitty coach. Like, that is a
Yeah.
shitty coach. You should never be pushing someone beyond their limit. Like, you can push people further than I think, like, they think that they can go. But
Yeah.
there is obviously a certain point where, like, oh, that kid is not doing well. Like, maybe they just sit down for a moment.
Yeah. Yikes. Like, that didn't really happen again, because I think then the teacher was like, oh, okay, we'll just leave her to die in the back when we do, like, gym activities and whatever. But, like, that would happen to me if I was in any sort of, like, spin class, is that, like, I'd be like, I'm not gonna get called out in front of everybody again, and then if I did throw up, I would just throw up quietly, like, like, I would burp
Just
up.
dribbling it down.
Like, I'm saying, people already sweat like a puddle underneath their bikes. Like,
what's a little throw up?
would they even tell if it was bile? I bet they wouldn't. I bet they wouldn't even be able to tell the goddamn difference. I have a note here, Wii Fitness calling me obese at 10 years old. My family was like, we'll get a Wii, and it'll be, like, really cool.
No.
It'll have our little moon-faced children, and it'll make them be active. And I stepped on the scale, and they're like, obese. And I'm like, oh. And so I just started playing Just Dance with my arms until my arms hurt, and then I was like, how about now? And they're like, obese. I'm like, oh.
What? Wii Fitness had no business traumatizing an entire generation of children, because what, the parents weren't going to use it. I do think my mom, like, tried to use Wii Fitness, like, once, and then she was like, this is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because you're literally just going like, like putting
Doing
your
like a
hands.
YMCA movement.
Yeah,
Down,
like up and down, and it's up, step, down, step,
steps,
up, step, down,
down.
step, and it's like, yeah, that's not really like the most effective exercise. So it's like kids fucking do it. Anyway, sorry, that's a whole another episode.
But then I started, like, because you mentioned earlier, like, the history of group, and it made me think of, like, there's the scene in, like, it's not the first episode, I thought it was, but it's the second episode of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, where she's, like, talking about, like, her life in the middle of, like, a whatever, and they're, like, holding out, like, cans, and then she's like, careful, you don't want to exercise too hard, you don't want to look like the divorcees back there, and they're like, because they're trying to find a husband, and so they're, like, keeping it tight, and I'm just like, what's the history of, like, group activities, whatever? So actually, aerobics was invented in 1966, which is what they were satirizing in that whole thing. So that was the first idea of, like, doing it in a group. And it worked because, like, then it got housewives out of the house and, like, make friends, but also to make enemies.
Keeps the body tight.
Keeps the body tight with, like, tin cans and,
Yeah.
like, hula hoops and whatnot.
Well, because that's the thing, right? Like, you want to be slim and toned, but you don't want to be muscular.
Exactly.
And that's what all of these fucking boutique classes, like, do.
Precisely.
Anyway, yeah.
And then the 70s had jazzercise,
Ooh.
which was basically like, this ain't your mother's aerobics class because we're getting funky with it. But it's like jazzercise, which is like, my favorite thing about, like, white people weddings is, like, white people love it when they can dance with a song with an explicit instructions.
Cha-cha now, y'all.
They're like, oh, finally. Left hand stomp. And they're like, yes. Take it back now, y'all. Hell, yes. The YMCA even, they're like, yes, give me more explicit directions.
Yeah.
So, like, jazzercise was nor jazz, barely exercise, and the beat was just like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. So whatever, but they tried.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts, they tried. In the 1980s, they had the celebrity workout tapes. So this was less like, I mean, you could obviously, like, there were people in the back behind Jane Fonda doing the Jane Fonda workout tapes, but usually it's like, do the embarrassing shit at home.
Yeah.
You can just go to Blockbuster and rent out a VHS and then embarrass yourself in the comfort and privacy of your own living room rather than go out with, like, your leotard and your tights and your leg warmers and do it in front of other people.
Yeah.
Did you know about O.J. Simpson's workout tape?
No, I saw that in your notes and I was like, what? Tell me more.
So O.J. Simpson did a workout tape. So the celebrities, Jane Fonda started it because Jane Fonda is a god. But so then every celebrity was like, yo, I want to get in on this. Like Marky Mark. I almost said Zuckerberg. Mark Wahlberg did a workout tape. They all have one. But O.J. Simpson made one like a couple months before the incident. And it was basically like, looking back at it now, it's like the funniest thing to watch because O.J. Simpson's like, we're not as young and sprightly as we used to be, but we can still pack a heavy punch. And it's like, I like to work on my swing. And
OJ.
I like to do a quick change. I like to keep a bag of workout clothes when I go to work. I call it my little getaway.
Stop. He's like, oh, I wonder where my other glove went. Pulls it out the back.
Actually, because the defense for OJ, they was like, this is a frail old man. Like, he can't have possibly committed this crime. And so they brought forth his workout tape as evidence in court to be like, even though OJ Simpson is technically older, he is not frail. Exhibit B, his workout tape, where he insists that he is at peak physical condition to do all of these things. I love rabbit holes. It's so funny. And then he just sitting there, he's like, sometimes the anger just gets too much, so I just need to relax. And
he's actively incriminating himself.
It ends with like, this is why you need... I mean, hey, we're not as old as we used to be, but if you just take a little bit of...
Wait, as old as we used to be?
Young as we used to be.
Oh, okay.
We're not as old as we're going to be. We're not as young as we used to be, but hey, you follow these steps and you can be a better businessman and a better husband to you and yours back home. And you're like, hee hee hee. Anyway, past the no more stepping on the beats with OJ. The 90s brought step aerobics, which is what Wii Fitness was about, basically.
Yeah.
It was just basically like, if you don't want to run up and down the steps of your home, because it's the 90s and you can all afford a home, if you don't want to run up and down the steps of your 2-story home, you can just step on like a box.
Yeah.
And get the same like movement. And then, do you remember Zumba?
Yes.
I don't.
Really? I mean, you can still take a Zumba
I
class.
was out of shape. Kaylynne.
I mean, I know I've never been to a Zumba class.
We got a Zumba fan.
But it was like a cultural moment. You would go to YMCA and they would have a Zumba class. Actually, no, that's a lie. I did go to one Zumba class.
What happened in Zumba? I don't know what happened in Zumba. What happens in Zumba?
It's just like dance. Like you just like do little. It's very similar.
real smooth.
It's very similar to like jazzercise or like aerobics. Like you're just kind of like dancing and it's fun. No, the reason I went was one of my friends in high school. Her mom was a Zumba instructor, so we went to her mom's class. It was fun. I was gonna ask, do you remember P90X?
But I remember hearing it all over the place.
Yeah. It was constantly on like the TV ads. We had it. I'm pretty sure my mom would like do P90X workouts at home. And it was just so like intense. Like you had this like super muscular man like yelling at you to fucking like do more push-ups.
I'm about to say some words to you. Are you ready? And
Oh
I want to see your genuine reaction to these words, all right? Everyone at home? The Fitness Gram Pacer Test is a multi-stage aerobic capacity test that progressively gets more difficult as it continues. The 20-meter pacer test will begin in 30 seconds. They would never tell us that it was Fitness Gram because then they knew that we would all like sign out that day.
Yeah.
Literally, they would gather us around. It would be so Hunger Games. We would all be in the middle of the gym and then over the speakers it's the fitness, and we'd be like, no, and we would all just stand around. We'd be like, no, please God, no, not today.
No.
They wouldn't give us time to stretch. They wouldn't give us time to anything. They're basically just like, we want to see where you guys are at, as far how far you can go, and we all did like line up at the thing. It was literally the feeling of dread is what I imagine it would be like to be in the Hunger Games, and the cornucopia is right there.
Damn, your gym sounds intense. We did not do that. They gave us plenty of like heads up. Well, because the thing is, they would basically tell us, like, we would spend weeks up until like the like state testing or whatever, like prepping for it or whatever.
No, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
No, they're basically like, we want to see where you fat asses are at.
Oh. Well, no, because they would do one at the beginning of the year and then one at the end of the year. It was supposed to be like you're supposed to improve or whatever, like year to year. But we would do it all in like, there was like a week and it was just constant testing. It was like where you were doing like do you remember like the little stretch thing with the ruler?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, the Fitness Gram. You'd have to do the mile. What were the fucking hang bar? Oh my God, the worst. Because the thing is, I have no upper body strength. Like, literally none. I never have. I've never been able to do a pull-up. Not once in my entire
sit-ups,
life.
I kept, like, literally, I would do this. I had
so
this system
hard.
where I would, like, push, like, I would be like, and I would, like, launch myself from my shoulders.
You have to use the momentum, and you're not supposed to, but
And
I'm like, how else
would be
am I
like,
supposed to get
the teacher
up?
would be like, Daniels! And she would snap, and she'd be like, sit up with your stomach muscles. And I'd go, but teacher, I've had a tummy since I was born. I don't have any. But speaking of like, maybe that's why I never want to do like any sort of spin or aerobics class, because I was already so used to like pushing myself more because I was in a group of my peers. Like the Fitness Gram, you don't want to just like
You don't want to be the first one out.
You don't want to be the first one out. And, like, these aren't just strangers that you paid, like, $35 to be with. These are, like, your friends and your bullies. And you don't want to be the one that, like, pussyfoots out at the first whatever. I mean, I knew it was never going to be the last, but, like, you definitely don't want to be the first. And so then I'm also pushing myself way harder than I need to be.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't want to get judged. Same with, like, everyone lining up. And it's like, how far can you stretch? And my partner just sitting there just being like... I hate saying these things with a smile on my face because I feel like that, not to bring it back to Puss in Boots, but like that dog saying his tragic backstory, and the other two were like, oh, this is fucking horrific. But like, you know, those memes where it's like, oh, like the last one picked for dodgeball, there's like, who wants to be Daniel's partner? And people would be like, because no one wanted to be the one that had to hold my feet down and count as I was red in the face, and I'd be like, one, give myself fucking whiplash in the back of my neck so I could like fucking propel myself forward using the muscles that I don't have. I know I need to exercise more often. Like literally a couple months ago, Hannah and I had to like outrun a crazed fucking cracked out maniac. So, quick story time for anyone who doesn't know this story, but everyone who's listening probably already knows this story, but I wanted the internet to know this story. Hannah and I were walking back from, like, a night out, and it was, like, only, like, a... Karaoke. It was only, like, a 10-minute walk from our house or whatever, and we hear this, like, demon noise, and we're like, I wonder what that is, huh? And then we don't see anyone, because this is at, like, 3 in the morning? Like, it's late, and, like, there's no one else on this strip of road, and then we do see someone waiting for the bus, and we're like, oh, God, it can't be them, right? We pass by them, and suddenly it is the noise again. We're like, oh, no. And then they're talking to, like, I have killed your father, and I'm wearing his skin. As a pelt. And I'm just like, what craziness that is, huh? And then Hannah goes, hey,
You're like, weird.
that voice isn't getting closer, is it? And I look around, it kind of is. But we don't have to, like, we don't want to wait around or anything. That's right. Like, we don't want to wait around to see if he actually is following us. We just start booking it. It's only a couple blocks, and I am so ferociously, disgustingly out of shape that I am, like, heave-hoeing. Like, I just lifted a boat over my face, and I only did, like, a slight jog for, like, 2 blocks, and we're already getting to our front door, and I'm like... So I should probably get involved in some sort of like spin class, Pilates, anything where I move my body more than sitting on my ass and driving on my ass. And then going home and lying down on my ass.
Well, but here's the other like side of it too, is that truly, unless you have like a nanny or a like if you have kids and a full-time job and you're poor, how the fuck are you supposed to ever have time to exercise?
Yeah.
How?
I don't even have any of those excuses, and I still don't have time to exercise.
Well, but it's like, even if you have like I don't know, on like a day-to-day basis, like I pretty much only exercise on the weekends because it's the only fucking time that I have the time to do it, because on a day-to-day basis during the week I don't have time. And I'm 22, childless. I really do
Penniless.
not have, I literally, like, I do not have that many responsibilities, and it is difficult to find the time to exercise. So it's like, the people who stand on their little, like, moral superiority box, and they're like, oh, if you really cared for yourself, if you really, like, wanted to do the self-care, like, that would just be a priority for you. And it's like, sometimes we just don't have the time.
The spin instructors that are like, this is your time. This is our time. It's our time down here.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like, it's kind of weird how like focus. I know I already talked about this a little bit before, but like how focused on time they truly are, because especially with things like spin class or like the boot camp classes where you're really trying to like, or maybe not trying to, but like they are exercises that are like quote unquote efficient, where like you can make the most out of your time because you're doing like a high intensive or a high intensity workout that is going to like burn more calories per hour than like, I don't know, like yoga or something like that. It is so like focused on how like you only have 45 minutes. You have to make the most out of those 45 minutes because you have to schedule in this time because you are so overworked. And I just feel like all of this is just part of like American culture as well.
Yeah.
Although they do have SoulCycle in other countries, like it is a thing globally, but I just in the like American corporate culture, it is so normalized to work like 10-12 hour days, and then you have to like make the most out of these 45 minutes because you don't have the time to dedicate 2 hours to working out when like that would maybe be more enjoyable. It depends. I don't know.
I'm gonna end this with this quote from the same Vox article, because I literally said, I went, pardon? It was like, a former employee shared a photo with Vox of a sticky note that hung in the studio's office. On it, a quote attributed to Janet, the co-creator of SoulCycle, said that if writers start asking if they were on cocaine or say that they look like they had an eating disorder, it means that the instructors were hitting their goal weights. Pardon me? That's when, like, you know, you can rebrand all you want. They're like, no, this is about you. It's uplifting you. It's spiritual. It's enlightenment. It's everyone in this room is connected through soul. And it's like, no. Be honest. You just want everyone to be rail thin at all costs, and you just don't want to say that out loud. BFFR. And like the last quote that I have here is like, you exercise to be healthier. I exercise until I pass out so I can fuck the hot SoulCycle instructor. We are not the same. And then they either want to be their instructor or they want to fuck their instructor. Like, that's just the feminine experience. You aren't special. Seeing a hot woman being like, do I want to be you? We're on you. That's not...
Yeah, that's universal,
That's
babes.
a universal... And that's womanhood. And that's girlhood.
But yeah, this week we wanted to do a little lighter episode because the last couple have been a little depressing. So we hope that you enjoyed. I think my final thing is...
Be normal.
Yeah, just like... BFFR. Just BFFR your way through life. Stay humble. And just like be down to earth. I think that's the main issue. It's like, it's not an issue if you enjoy these classes or you go to these classes. It's the issue is when like it becomes this whole thing and like a part of your identity. Like you can just be a person who like exercises sometimes and like you enjoy the specific type of exercise, and it doesn't have to be like so much ingrained into your identity.
It doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah. But thank you guys for listening. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I think
your
that's
mom's
it.
house.
I am inside your home right now.
I'm inside your mom.
Stop. Ready to be birthed out of the canal.
Well, we thought different ways of being inside your mom. Sounds like.
I know. It's okay.
You tried
whatever.
to save it, but.
No, I think it made it worse. Yeah, thank you guys. We love you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.